I think in our home, education was always held in high esteem. So I think that was the influence. The needs of the district at the time in 2005 were really some of the strengths I have in solving problems. So it was really a fairly good match between what the district needed and the history of what I have done as a superintendent.
When we realized he was actually the man for us was really exciting for our school board, because we really needed someone with firm leadership whom we could count on being involved in the community. In fact, he did move his family to our community.
You know, obviously J.H. Hull was the founder of the district and the first superintendent. But I think after J.H. Hull, the superintendent that had the biggest effect on the district as a whole is Dr. Mannon. And I had heard prior to him being hired that his job was to pass bonds. So I kind of looked at him almost like a lamb going to slaughter, because in the late 90s it took us 4 attempts to pass one rather small bond. So George got what was basically the impossible task, because at the time the schools were, you could say, in disrepair. I would say in ruins. My kids wouldn't go to the bathroom in schools. So it was a crisis, and the board, to some extent, just handed him the problem and said, go fix it.
Torrance was known for a community that valued education, for students who were high performers. But unfortunately, Torrance was also known as having probably the worst facilities, maybe in all of Los Angeles County. We had a committee, a large committee of citizens who reviewed every school site, who wrote a report in June of 2007. From that report, there were 700 pictures taken. Some were shocking to people in the community who have never seen some of the insides of schools at that time. Mrs. Reagans, who was a school board member at that time, and I point her out because she was with me, she and I did 48 meetings where we went to various schools and said, here we are, come and see us.
Oftentimes it was very similar information that needed to be shared, and Dr. Mannon was very, very good at remembering those specific pieces of information and knowing how to share them in a way that the community would be receptive to and understand them.
Mr. Lee was a civilian at the time, and we did attempt a bond, which quite frankly turned out really well for us because it failed.
And a couple of years later, we were able to put a bond together that was far better. And what we learned from that allowed us to do everything else. That process basically motivated me to go run for the board and work with George to get the bonds passed.
And George, put together committees, the right people, to look at the schools and show everybody in every portion of our city where their schools were not in the best condition.
The fact that George was such a good leader, he put together such a good team of people, and it wouldn't have happened without him, because he did bring a cross section of our community together to be a part of this. Everything from the unions were involved, every single part of the school district was involved, so that's why it passed.
Dr. Mannon typically is the adult in the room. He has a way to grab all the ideas that are bouncing around in a room and kind of formulate them into a coherent plan.
We were in the battle for passage of Measure Y and Z, and we had a Sunday where we literally had 1,000 people along Hawthorne Boulevard with signs.
Almost 25,000 students, and it's more than 80 different languages spoken in our schools, and to bring them all together under all the campuses that we have. And now we are producing students who are graduating from our high schools, going off to 4-year universities, sometimes trade schools, whatever is necessary for them. But they're getting recognized throughout the country. And that has a lot to do with the management team that Dr. Mannon put together and what he did as a leader of our school district.
Dr. Mannon and I collaborated with TEF to create the first wireless in the school district before it was funded by the school district. We found a way with the Ed Foundation to be able to actually create wireless networks within each school. So that was the infancy of our wireless connections.
I became mayor in 2006, and I came up with the idea of doing something in the city called Students in Government. Now, everybody told me school district was not going to want to be involved in this because it's a big deal, a lot of work for them. And I sat down with George and explained to him the program, and without hesitation, that man embraced it and it made it happen. Without his excitement about this program would have never happened. It's still going on today.
Dr. Mannon was the leadership, and the community trusted him. We went through $500 million in bond money, went through, until recently, the biggest recession in our lifetime, kept scores up, kept it together in very, very, very uncharted waters.
We as a board were responsible for cutting the jobs of hundreds of people in the school district to try to maintain fiscal solvency of our school district. And that was just so difficult for me, and I would go to him and sort of bemoan the fact that that was something we had to do, and he said, yes it is, but again, that decisive leadership, sort of matter of fact, this is what we have to do, and we know it's the best thing to do, and it will all come out better in the end. We will get back to normalcy.
I think it's memorable when we opened all the football stadiums and people got to look at that. Another memorable occasion was the opening of the new Hull Middle School, the first new school in Torrance in 40 or 45 years. We also added almost a whole school to Fern by taking back the Greenwood campus where we had kids, and then modernization for every high school, middle, and elementary school.
The new auditoriums with all the sound equipment, all the ability to put on concerts and plays and jazz events and those kinds of things are really a testament to his vision. You know, when they talk about STEM, you know, now they talk about STEAM, adding the A, which is the arts, and I think it's really important as we go forward. We can't get too focused on the nuts and bolts. There's got to be some fun, there's got to be some art. And I think those auditoriums and what's inside of them will be the kind of facilities that everybody can use.
Science labs at the elementary level, that became more difficult than what we thought because there really were not science labs at elementary schools in the state. So we had to develop the actual specifications for that. And so we did. We built 17 science labs. 40 years ago, the district had tried to pass bonds for swimming pools and failed. So for 40 years, we had kids practicing at 9 o'clock at night. The facility just not large enough to handle the community and also schools. And so there was a real need for us to have facilities if in fact we're going to have competitive swimming teams and water polo teams.
Really, Dr. Mannon's leadership said, yeah, we can do it. He was the coach. Yeah, we can do this, we can do this. And brought it from something that I dreaded to something that I thought was possible, and then finally to something that actually did happen and really will affect every kid in this community for the next 30 years.
People said, no, George, this is never going to work. And he said, yeah, it will. Yeah, it will. And it's something we need, and we'll find a place for it. And sure enough, we did a bond measure for it. The bond measure passed. They scouted around, found the location, and sure enough, he brought that in under budget and on time.
It's a great day for the community. There are several people in the community that have lived here for over 50 years that truly believe they would never see this day happen.
3.
Just thinking about the day that we opened up the aquatic center, the youth that were there, the children that were there, the families that were there, and the pride that I saw in everybody, including Dr. Mannon and the school board. It was really it's a memory that I will have for a long period of time.
We have more people now who attend high school swimming meets and water polo meets than ever before. Parents who like to come. And they like to come here. They also like to brag about what they have. We have a lot of things to be proud of. Look at our graduation rate. It's always one of the highest in the state. And at one year we actually had, and the state superintendent called me because when they announced that our graduation rate that year was 99.5%. the highest in the state of California, and he just wanted to talk to me about that. But that is assumed by our community.
Well, I'll never forget the first time I met him. I was the principal at West High School, and it was his first day on the job, September 15th of 2005, I think. And you know, right away he greeted me, knew my name, and you know, that was something that I'll never forget.
The biggest thing I'll miss is the 7:15 in the morning phone calls from Dr. Mannon. My wife would always joke if the phone rang at 7:15, it always had to be George. He doesn't always take the credit. He should take the credit. He should enjoy the accolades.
It's been a huge pleasure and honor, and in fact a privilege to work with you through this entire time, 15 years of time. I had no idea it would last this long. I'm so happy that it did. I think that the TUSD is absolutely better than it was before you came.
George, you and Nancy mean an awful lot to Terry and I and our community. Best wishes, continued success, enjoy retirement, and just always remember that Torrance loves you.
George, I really want you to know that I really, truly mean this from my heart, that I think you were an incredible person to lead our school district during that period of time. We needed you at that moment in time. You can be very proud of what you've done in your career, and very few people in that kind of position can say that, so congratulations.
Dr. Mannon, I'm so proud and honored to have worked with you for so many years, and I greatly appreciate the opportunities that you allowed me to personally grow and stretch, but more importantly, the impact that you had on this community will be measured and felt for generations to come.
For my colleagues, I've always been appreciative of their support, and for our board, who there have been several board members on and off the board through the years who have been supportive and who really reflect our community, and I always have appreciated that from them. My friend Mr. Lee said, and I'm going to see if this is true, that it should feel like your last day of school when you were in the 5th grade. So I will see if it actually feels that way.